Humans as a kind have made attempts to build durable and cheap houses for a long time, for example, with the help of grid shells. The principle of the technology is simple. The ribs are assembled into the cells, and grid shell is assembled from the very same cells. Its structure resembles the atomic bonds of matter, which determines its high strength. Richard Buckminster Fuller, designer and promoter of geodesic domes. Shulka Vladimir Grigorьевich, developer of grid shells and hyperboloid towers. More than a century ago, Shulka and Fuller amazed the world with their exquisite creations. Both proved that the frame of the building itself can be beautiful, and both predicted a great future for grid shell structures. However, in multi-apartment construction, the technology has not received distribution, so far being considered fundamentally unsuitable. But what if we change the basic principles themselves? Grid shell technology could become mainstream in the multi-story building industry. It is only necessary to abandon the usual horizontal floor-by-floor arrangement of apartments and transfer them to the surface of the grid shell, or build them into its structure. In this case, you can use both single cells and cell merging. This means that the arrangement of apartments, a horizontal, vertical, basically any suitable section of the grid shell is applicable. A version of placing capsule apartments on the frame of a geodesic dome with a combination of triangular cells into hexagons. For the sake of simplicity, the capsule apartments are shown as spheres, which of course does not dictate their final shape. There are clearly more possible options for the apartment layout than options for the shape of the grid shell itself. Moreover, a name for such a habitation capsule has not yet been invented. The definition of a classic private house doesn't fit here, just as the definition of an apartment doesn't fit either. That's rather a symbiosis of these two previous concepts. It would probably be more correct to build individual capsule apartments or small groups of them into one or more cells of the grid shell. This will evenly distribute the load over the shell and have a positive effect on sound insulation and hence on the comfort of residents. It is likely that capsules on the grid shell need to be attached in a special way with the help of devices capable of damping vibrations and simplifying the installation of capsule apartments already assembled on the ground. A hyperboloid tower, or a section of it, is another promising version of a grid shell shape. The example shows a continuous arrangement of more classical apartments in a rectangular ring structure. Here it's worth to mention another argument in favor of a separate layout using capsule apartment, that is, fire safety. The problem is not only the probable smoke of the adjacent rooms. The problem is in the threat of destruction of the entire grid shell due to the effect of high temperature on its critically large area. Every firefighter knows that the larger the building is, the more rooms it contains, the longer and more difficult it will be to fight the fire. The grid shell in the form of a spectral dome can be turned into a full sphere, which will not only increase the usable area, but also make the structure self-sufficient in terms of rigidity. In fact, there will be no need to fix the lower edge of the dome on the foundation. A version of the construction in the form of a full sphere, using a section of hyperboloid tower as a base. Noticeably harmonious combination of these two forms. A version of the construction in the form of a full sphere using an arch. This architectural structure, with a shape close to a parabola, is also effective in terms of ratio of bearing capacity and dead weight.